Nigerians encourage corruption, says June first of the Punch newspaper. And Nigerian Governors Forum calls for Okonjo Iweala's resignation. Page 2 of the Punch newspaper.
The dailies every day on CORETV News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to Core Digest. I am Frank Manape, and of course it's so good to have you join us this morning on this special edition of the program. Interestingly, today is the International Day of the Girl Child, and this by December 19 in 2011, the United Nations General Assembly adopted this resolution to mark the girl child, the rights of the girl child, the freedom and all that is attached to the girl child on October 11. And today is going to be a special day in the studio here. Very interesting. We're going to be having guests and we're going to be talking about all of these. And of course, we're also going to look at where are the Chibok girls that we've been talking about. That has been the question of that has been on the lips of every Nigerian. We'll come to that later, but we'll begin this morning with a newspaper review and looking at what is making the news on the front page of the Nigerian newspaper this morning. But we'll begin with The Nation. Well, the big one on The Nation newspaper this morning says endorsement. PDP governors may confront Jonathan. And the writer there says accused president National Working Committee of double standards. And another one says crisis imminent. Well, interesting story there on the front page of the Nation newspaper. You can find the details of that story on page 3. And that will give you the details of that story. Well, this one says PDP folks attack door officials as president inaugurates power plant. On page 3, you find the details of that story. And this one, $15 million arms deal. Sue contractors, recover funds, Falana tells federal government. That's a message from, the senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana there, talking about the arms deal. Page 5, you find the details of that story. Well, this one says Malala shares Nobel Peace Prize with India. Page 63. So we're just talking about the rights of the girl child there. We, of course, get the details of that story on page 63 of the Nation newspaper. Well, mayhem as military police engage fleeing Kirikiri inmates. Page 4 is where you get the detail of that story. And the writer says many prisoners fear dead. Well, very pathetic story there. Well, 26 killed, 80 houses razed in Plateau, fresh attacks. Page 57 is where you get the detail of that story. And a passing one here, very interesting. I get passes from men, but my state use scares them. Anambra Speaker Chinwe Waibele talking there. Well, and this one says, many of us lost our wives to other men. Communities recall 8 years of power outage. Page 17 is where you get the details of that story there. And that's a wrap with the Nation newspapers this morning. And now we're moving on to The Guardian now. The Guardian, the big one there, Malala, Pakistani teen wins Nobel Peace Prize. And the writer there, of course, says shares prize with Indian activist Kailash Satyarthi. You get the detail of that story on page 2 of The Guardian newspaper. And 26 persons killed in Plateau in 1 week. Very pathetic story there. Continue on page 2 there of the Guardian newspaper. Well, and this one is on Adamawa now. On page 14 of the Guardian newspaper, Fintere and the butchered Adamawa Gaba by-election. Get the detail, the latest on the Adamawa's politics on page 14 of the Guardian newspaper. Well, and that's much. That's a wrap with the Guardian newspaper. And then we're moving on to the Guardian, I beg your pardon, Vanguard, quickly. Sabotage, Colonel 10 officers set army tankers ablaze, pay way for Boko Haram. Well, interesting headline there, but get the details of that story, what really happened, and how come about the sabotage. Page 5 is where you get the details of that story of the Vanguard newspaper there. And this one is on Kirikiri prison riot. Security men shoot inmates. Jailbreak averted. Page 9 is where you get the details of that story. Now, well, of course, this one say, how I slaughtered 2 teenage thief girls. Well, that's a confession from, one man there. Get the details of that story on page 42 of the Vanguard newspaper. Well, the picture story there, see Malala holding, a flower, telling us that, okay, I'm happy with this prize. Well, moving away from the Vanguard now, quickly to the Punch newspaper. And here is a big one now. 2015 secret meeting fallout. Dunfield Atiku, Obasanjo wants APC. Dunfield Atiku, Obasanjo wants APC. And the writer, we are not aware of such warning. Atiku's 8. Interesting story there. Get the details of that story on page 3 of the Punch newspaper. And this one says, Boko Haram, Jonathan increases troops in Northeast to 20,000 from 15,000. Get the details of that story on page 6 of the Punch newspaper. And this one say, INEC Oshun Rec lose at appeal court. Get the detail of that story, the latest on Oshun politics on page 13 of the Punch newspaper. And well, let's take a look at the top right now. And you say, that looks like entertainment there. I used to beg to perform on shows, but now I charge millions. By Bakassi, a stand-up comedian in Nigeria there. Now this one down here, riot at Kirikiri prison, inmates feared dead. Now let's take a look at Malala quickly, and as we round off with the Punch newspaper. Malala wins 2014 Nobel Peace Prize. Page 48 and 49 is where you get the details of this story, and that's much we can take now on the papers this morning. And of course, we go straight now as the program begins right now. First of all, we'll be looking at the 12 soldiers and what exactly is happening today. Now there is death sentence hanging on those 12 soldiers now who have been calling, and of course a lot of Nigerians are calling for their release and saying, why should they be jailed? Even as at Thursday, well, former Senate President Ahmed Ebuti has also gone for appeal, and Femi Foyalana has come out and say, I beg your pardon, Festus Keyamo has come out and said they need to go for an appeal. Well, these are some of the big names in the judiciary system, calling for their release. And we also know that, of course, the one suit filed by the former president of NBA, Olisa, Dr. Olisa, is saying that, well, that they should be given the right to hearing, and that judgment violate their human right, which he quoted from section 36, subsection 1 of the Nigerian 1999 Constitution, saying that violate the human right, as they were not given free, fair hearing in that judgment. Well, do you agree? Well, to discuss this this morning on the program, I have with me a retired colonel, Hassan Stan-Labo, with me. Will be joining me in the studio live this morning to discuss this topic. Thank you for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you, Frank.
Well, interesting. Of course, I'm sure you, with the other day, we're calling you on a particular show, and you were giving us your own side of the story. But looking at this death sentence hanging on these 12 soldiers. What do you make of it? A lot of lawyers, senior advocates are calling for their release, or they should be given a different option. What is your take on this?
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Nice question, actually. I want the public to understand that, look, the military is not pretending to be a democracy. The Nigerian military might be operating within a democratic environment, but it does not erode the fact that the military remains an organization that is built on dictatorship with a hierarchy that runs across. Frankly speaking, mutiny in the military carries the death sentence.
All right.
Okay? And some of these rules cut across. They are universal. Armies worldwide. In operations, you are found to have committed this, you are tied to the stake immediately after the court-martial and fired. I can understand the feelings of Nigerians, but it does not, you know, it cannot translate into the military trying to water down its standard of discipline. I want to say, thank God, there are several channels of intervention, which includes the appeal. Apart from the trial, which I expected a lot of lawyers to have been able to mobilize themselves, come together, and be able to put up a robust defense for these soldiers, so as to see how probably they could water down the
judgment?
Not the judgment, but the offense itself.
Okay.
You know, from...
Okay, the gravity
of the offense, yeah. Well, if they miss out on that, we still have an opportunity at the appeal stage. We have very sound lawyers in this country. Look at what somebody whom I respect so much, Falano, is presently doing with the current ongoing court-martial, where he is, you know, defending about 70-something soldiers. I expect to see a robust defense like that too at the appeal level. And something could come out of it. Outside these channels, my brother, no sentiments. These boys will be fired.
Okay, were they given a chance, really, for fair hearing?
Court-martials,
was that judgment fair? Let's, before we go to other things, was that judgment fair, in your opinion?
Frank, yes. Court-martials, look, the military hierarchy has no personal grudge against any individual there. You have committed an offense, and the law says you should come before a court-martial because it's a court-martial offense. So a court-martial is set up. If you don't have a lawyer, you are availed one.
Okay.
Okay? And you are free, at liberty, to even organize additional lawyers to give you a robust defense the way you like. So every fairness, I'm talking out of experience. I have nothing to gain or whatever. I'm telling you, they were given fair chances. But if anybody feels they were not given enough fair hearing, like I said, we still have a window of intervention, which is the appeal.
All right.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe something went wrong, or maybe they were not really, probably lawyers didn't have access to them immediately when the sentence or the judgment started earlier. Could there be, as a result of maybe wrong choice of counsel or defense counsel that should defend them? Could there be that they couldn't, because you talk about putting up a robust defense?
Yes, right.
Could that be the cause why their case was like this?
I don't think so. Whatever the case, well, they had the opportunity
because maybe, just like you said, probably there is a robust defense that you talk about was lacking here. And probably that was why they got this judgment. Other options could have been employed.
Yes, we are acting on probabilities. After all, they all had defense, military officers defending them, military lawyers who were defending them. Okay. So meaning you were availed an attorney to be able to articulate your case and present it before the board and argue a case out for you.
Okay.
All right? The only point why I came up with that statement that, look, that statement came up because I felt, look, rather than we as Nigerians out there with some level of ignorance as to what goes on within the ambit of military law, begin to say, look, couldn't this have happened? Couldn't that have happened? The most important thing that could have happened is that, look, you could have all come together as lawyers and go there before the court martial and put your heads together and see how you can present a robust defense. That is not to mean that probably the defense that was presented wasn't robust, but I'm looking at a situation where SANS are involved, the way Falana is now involved, and so on. You know, there is a way, even at the
because
ordinary...
I was going to ask if civilian lawyers are bad from defending such case.
No, they are not bad. Is Falana a soldier? Falana is not a soldier. Civilian lawyers are not bad. Lawyers are lawyers. All you need to do is to show your interest before the court, and the president will welcome you and ask you who are those you are standing in for, and so on. In fact, the last incident, you had Falana requesting for certain papers and so on. In fact, the court even had to adjourn for 1 week to enable certain documents that were being requested by the lawyers of this gentleman to be acquired. You could see the level of fairness. The president of the court adjourned to allow for every document requested to reach their attorneys.
Okay, Colonel, let me ask this question. The reason given for their action, these 12 soldiers, they were finally sentenced to death. The reason given for their action is the fact that they were not well protected, and given the fact that their lives were exposed to dangers, and given the enormity of their task, facing this insurgent who were, you know, will I say presumably now, or will I say that were assumed to be well equipped, even more than the Nigerian soldiers. Given that reason, couldn't this case be tempered? Well, let's say they'll temper judgment with mercy and all of that.
Frank, I would answer you against the backdrop of your ignorance, all right? And I will take the pain to explain, because I know we're explaining to the general public.
Exactly.
And I know you might have deliberately asked that question, not necessarily that probably you are even ignorant of whatever the situation is.
Because
Look, Frank,
why I asked that question,
Connor,
is because they gave a reason, this is why we did this.
Yes.
And we had no intention of killing the GOC that was in charge.
The most important thing is that, look, a directive was given. You violated, you refused, you disobeyed, and in addition to it, here you are armed, and you are pointing your muzzle at a fellow soldier, not to even talk of somebody of a very far higher command than you. My brother, merely pointing the muzzle at your fellow soldier alone, in itself is a court-martial offense in the army.
Okay.
In itself.
All right.
A loaded weapon. Probably I'm annoyed and I cock and points it at you immediately. The military police should pick me up immediately and pick witnesses around there. I'm gone.
Okay.
Okay? Coming back to the question. Look, you have violated an instruction, a directive that was given to you. Besides, you have violated certain sections of the military laws, which you are very much aware of. You know the consequences of this. You face the consequences. There is no way you have no excuse. Let me tell you one aspect of our military operations you might not be aware of.
All right.
As a platoon commander, if I'm leading a body of men, and for instance, the enemy fire is so hard on me and we pin down, when I mean pin down, that is to go down, all right? If after some moments the enemy stops firing because he's also confused as to my location and I'm confused as to his location, you know what I do? I sacrifice a life. I ask one bloody idiot to jump across and run to so-so tree. As he moves, the enemy will shoot at him. Fine, and I know the direction from where the enemy is. I have sacrificed one life. I will move on. I am trying to tell you the extent to which we can go to achieve the higher commander's intentions. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
Good.
Good.
I understand.
So
what
not
you're
to talk of a situation like this where, I mean, no, look.
Okay, could EU, of course, EU have rejected that death sentence. Could EU be calling for, because, of course, could EU be calling for rejection, for everyone to reject that death sentence, or based on ignorance, or maybe they didn't know that there's law? Because I'm asking, the reason why I asked that question is because
Nigeria is a sovereign nation.
Okay.
Nigeria is a sovereign nation. EU can't come and tell us how to rule ourselves. Nigeria is a sovereign nation. And no one dictates to us. I can understand Nigerians talking. I cannot understand EU telling me we reject this.
But
what the hell?
We are part of them, and
we are part of the international community.
We signed a treaty with them.
What treaty?
Or probably, okay, maybe you should educate me, because if European Union, United Nations, we have a treaty with United Nations, and we are part of all of these international communities. And if they can actually, of course, you said we're a sovereign nation. I agree with you. Nigeria is a sovereign nation.
Yes.
But they could step in when there is a crisis, because given the challenge, or the challenge of insecurity in Nigeria, probably that's why they are calling for rejection of this.
That Nigeria is a signatory to the Human Rights Protocol of the United Nations does not mean that Nigeria is ready to abandon its sovereign rights.
Okay.
We are a sovereign nation, for crying out loud. Okay? With every respect, every power that we should be able to carry ourselves along as a sovereign nation. And also, we're talking about Nigeria. I mean, if you are counting countries in Africa, before you count 1, 2, Nigeria must come in. So we're not just talking about some little banana republic. We are a country that has come of age. Forget our inadequacies at home. We know who we are within the international community. The EU cannot be dictating to us.
All right.
No. Whatever our differences at home, that is a family issue. But the EU cannot be dictating to us. The US cannot be dictating to us. These are military laws. And in fact, they are even universal. There is still a window of intervention. Let lawyers please move on to the appeal court sessions, put their heads together and see what they can do. Okay.
I'll come to an appeal, Hassan, Stan-Labo here.
Yes, please.
Well, I'll come to that appeal, whether it to be, taken, and whether they will have to look into it. But let's look at it. A lot of Nigerians say, look, intention of these people, if really their intention is to kill the army commander, they should have done that before anybody knows that, and by then it would have been dead at that time. Can we really, do you agree with that summation or assertion by some Nigerians who say their intention should be looked into, that they were actually, if they actually intend to kill the commander, maybe the commander would have been dead before everyone knows it?
Let the lawyers prove that to the courts. Let the lawyers be able to establish that before the appeal court. I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, fine. I'm an infantry officer. Let the lawyers be able to establish that. That no, frankly speaking, this wasn't the intent of these guys. But if you're already pointing a muzzle towards, and you have probably released some shots that didn't get in, I wonder what you are trying to establish to me.
And so that contravened the law of the military. Okay, let's look at the appeal, Colonel. Do you think, in the case of an appeal, in your own opinion, what do you see playing out if these soldiers, 12 soldiers, get lawyers, efficient hands, and they appeal?
Yes.
What do you see playing out?
It could be that way. It could, the judgment could be watered down from capital punishment, that is death sentence, to maybe life imprisonment or whatever, and so on. It all rests with their lawyers and the court-martial team. Let's see how they argue their case.
Okay, in your own opinion, do you think other options apart from the death sentence, which the law really stipulate, do you think other options should have been employed, like dismissal or probably imprisonment and all of that?
Frankly, with my level in the military, I know what the consequences of the offense attracts.
Okay.
Are we sounding so...
So other options, you are saying that
Look,
it's not going to work.
Look. You did this, my brother, you're gone.
Okay, let's, Colonel, let's look at this. A lot of Nigerians are also blaming the military hierarchy and the corrupt, politicians' inability to prosecute this war, given the enormity of these insurgents. Now, in your own opinion, what do you think that we should be doing right now? Do you think that descent, because a lot of them are saying, oh, things happen, and so the military hierarchy should also have its blame?
To be fair to the military hierarchy, I wouldn't have been able to say this 2 or 3 weeks back.
Okay.
Because instead, what I was saying on air was that we should go beyond mere court-martialing privates and lance corporals. We should look beyond that. Because like I kept saying then, and as if I was reading the handwriting on the wall, because what I was craving for was actually what the military hierarchy was already doing. You are aware that some senior officers are already going on court-martial now. You are aware of that?
Exactly.
Good. I was saying then that, fine, these guys have committed these offenses. We are aware of the fact that there is some level of sabotage going on. Have we made any attempt to look even within the officer corps and know who are those who might be responsible for things like this? Because some of the information that is being leaked out, probably, to Boko Haram are not information that are within the ambit of a private or lance corporal or corporal or sergeant. Okay? We are talking about operational decisions and so on. These are things handled by staff officers at the top and commanders. So as at then, about 3 weeks back, I was saying we should look beyond. Fine, we have taken care of these boys, okay? Because we must instill discipline back to our military. And I'm really impressed with that. But we have to dig further. We have to deepen our level of search so as to catch the other bigger fishes. And that's just what the military is doing.
How do you begin?
That's what they are doing already.
How do you begin to discover and search within this military? Is there any independent monitoring team within the military hierarchy that is set up to begin to search and probe if there's really some flaws in the military hierarchy or system?
The military is an organization that is well grounded. Okay? They have enough structures on ground to look into matters like this, and they'll be able to dig out whatever it is for you. We have the intelligence corps and so on. There are structures that can handle all this. The army is one fine organization. Everything is complete there. I keep telling people. I think when my dad was telling me as a little boy, because he was in the army too, in the colonial army, I never understood it until I know better today that the military is a complete organization on its own. There are enough structures. They have no problem. They can sort that out.
Yeah, but do you...
It's just having the willpower to do it. Do we want to do it? Fine, then let's get doing it. And they're already doing it. I'm impressed. They're already doing it.
But the argument is that even the military itself has flaws within the system. Do you share in that argument?
Depending on what... Let's define our flaws. Which of the flaws?
Looking at the fact that, okay...
The corrupt aspects and so on?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, fine. I agree with you. And you see, Frank, let's be very reasonable here. Whenever this talk about corruption in the military comes up, my response is always this. Do we have a government that is ready to fight corruption? The answer is no. If we have a government that is ready to fight corruption, whatever the corruption we are talking about in the military by now wouldn't have been existing. If we want to fight corruption, let's fight corruption. Not isolate the military and start talking of 1 trillion naira being allotted to the military and so on. All the other ministries, what have been allotted to them and how has it gone? If we want to fight corruption, let's fight corruption. Unfortunately, those who should be fighting corruption are the same people who own the private jets, which their salaries cannot buy. Is that the man that will fight corruption? So let's not just go into that area of corruption in the military until we are ready to fight corruption. Because we cannot isolate the military and fight corruption in the military. When budgetary allocations come and we are allotting 2 billion naira or 1 billion naira for cutleries in the kitchen, in the villa, every year, is that not corruption? Can my wife in my house every year submit a bill for new sets of cutleries? I will ask her whether she's the daughter of Dangote.
All right.
So that is it. If we want to fight corruption, let's fight corruption. If we're not ready to fight corruption, then let's discuss and avoid corruption.
Because what they are saying is that that billions of naira been budgeted for the military to buy arms, to buy these and equip that and all of that. Even when this insurgency issue came up, that even there was a special allocation for the military to fight this insurgent. And it looks as if there's something is not just playing out well.
Good.
And so who should be called to question?
Good.
Who should we begin to point fingers?
If I want to point finger, I'll start by pointing finger to the government before I point to the military. We don't expect angels from heaven to come down and run our military. Nigerians like you and I will run our military. If we are running the military within a corrupt environment, and we have decided to be corrupt, and nobody is ready to check us because all fingers are soiled, you get what you want. Garbage in, garbage out. That's why I'm telling you that if I'm to talk about corruption, I'll first of all be pointing my fingers at the government. But before pointing it to the military.
A lot to say the government cannot do everything. And so there's somebody in charge of the military.
Yes.
And then down to the, to the lower hierarchy in the military. And these are the people that oversees all of these, including those who even operate the executive in the military, who execute such programs for the military.
Well, since you're adamant you want to discuss corruption, let's just take a little bit part of it. Yes,
no,
you
I'm
seem
just,
to want to...
I'm just looking at the fact that this is what Nigerians are saying.
Yes.
And giving...
I'm a Nigerian too. Let me respond.
Given this issue of insurgent, we need to begin to look at it critically.
Thank you. I keep telling journalists all over the place whenever I'm being interviewed that, look, the media itself, to an extent, is playing what I'll call the armchair critic. Have you taken the pain to investigate? Have you taken the pain to ask the end user of that 1 trillion naira whether actually you received 1 trillion naira? This is a country where what is allocated by virtue of budgetary allocations is not what is released. What is released is not what gets to you. What gets to you is not what is expended. What is expended, you keep going on. The whole thing continues to diminish as it proceeds until the end user at times, the so-called 1 trillion we're talking about. I hope you're aware that the papers have been telling us how a huge part of this 1 trillion ended up with, what do we call it, recurrent.
All right.
All right?
Recurrent expenditure.
Yes. For instance, in the army, I think with what we read in the papers, in the army, only 6% of the army chunk of it went for capital expenditure. The rest went for recurrent. So, meaning that those who actually did the allocations did not really bother much about capital expenditure.
All right.
The concern was pay people's salary and their allowances and so on. Do you get what I'm saying?
Of course.
Fine. By the time we are done with all that, and like I keep saying, I said, look, I look around me and I see politicians, some small boys who we gathered in the village and said, look, let this one go to the house. Let this one go to the house. And we all accepted and we voted and they went to the house. 2 years later, they own private jets. You can't even access them. Like my auntie we asked in the village, now and then, MUTINY, How much do they pay these people? And this small boy is now riding a private jet? These are questions Nigerians are asking. So when you go to find out, all these private jets you see flying about, the money comes from all these allocations we are talking about. Their own money does not fall from heaven.
Okay, so you are hinging this issue of corruption
I'm
on the government.
linking it, yes. Okay. I'm creating a linkage.
So you are giving the chunk, chunk of it to on the government.
I'm creating a linkage and telling you why we cannot fight corruption.
Corruption now, okay.
The House cannot fight corruption. The National Assembly of this country. They can't fight corruption.
Okay.
The executive arm, I'm afraid, cannot fight corruption either. Then who is to fight corruption? Me?
Okay, I'm aware. Of course, we all know that. Okay, 5 soldiers were discharged there. We have to put their names on the screen for you to see. David, Robert, Mohammed Sani, Ise Ubong, and Sebastian, Guaba, Naman, Samuel were discharged. Why Jeremiah Chuchu was sentenced to 28 days with hard labor. Well, the other 12 soldiers, well, they actually included Jasper, Brado, and the rest of them. Now, Colonel, what should we be looking at? That's your boy?
Yeah, I know a good number of them. They are infantry. A good number of them are infantry
David
soldiers.
Musa.
They fought with me in Liberia. Some of them fought with me in Sierra Leone. Some were with me in Bakassi. I know a good number of them. I know Jasper very well.
But
Fine young man.
There's a motion, apart from the fact that the law has to take its course. Emotion really comes in. Does emotion come in when it comes to issue of these, especially when you're so close to someone, at the end of the day the person dies, or probably the person was sentenced to death and all of that?
Sure, definitely. We are all human beings. Emotions would run once in a while. But the fact remains that we are soldiers. And it's part of us. We've seen several deaths and so on. I think I killed for the first time as a second lieutenant. And I know the day that happened to me, after killing, I went to my room and I had difficulty sleeping and things like that. That was my baptism.
On the war front?
No, that was when we were firing armed robbers.
Okay.
Those days in the military, when armed robbers were being tied to the stick, I commanded one of the armed robbery executions. And after that incident being my baptism, the very first time I would give orders for men to be shot, killed in my presence, and you pretend you are not moved, only to go back to the bedroom and say, Jesus, I killed. But well, I killed in the line of duty.
I wish you could talk more on the life of soldier, but it's so that it doesn't look like as if we're diverting. This really an interesting. Maybe one of these days we just need to take a look at the life of a soldier or Nigerian army, which is very, very interesting to discuss. Looking at this now, these 12 soldiers.
I saw your list, yeah.
Now, looking at this now, what do you think we should be doing at the moment? Where do we focus the Nigerian soldiers in order to defeat these insurgents rather? Where do you think we should be focusing, and what really are we lacking within the Nigerian military system, and that should be taken care of?
If we are talking of areas to focus on, I would say that, well, as much as possible, I'm happy with the developments that we see now, all right? Because, frankly, the military is getting it right.
Okay.
When I say getting it right now, I mean that, look, we are beginning to, maybe by virtue of all the build-up in terms of equipment and so on that's coming in now, we are really taking our rightful place. This is the military we used to know, okay? Now, I want to insist or suggest that the build-up be hastened. Let's move faster with this build-up. But I know it has to do with manufacturers' delays and some other things like that, because these are not things you find on the shelf. Fine. Thank God the build-up is ongoing, and we are seeing a lot of enhancement in terms of combat capabilities in the field. Okay? It is reflecting in the field. Having said that, two, I want us to look at the welfare of the men, motivation, and what have you.
Oh, okay.
All right?
Colonel, let's go quickly on break. When we come back, we'll probably discuss more on that, the issue of the welfare and all of that, what should we be looking at.
All right.
Well, this is called Digest, a weekend edition. We'll be looking at the Nigerian 12 soldiers. Well, of course, I'm sure you've been enjoying that. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, the program continues. Be back.
Nigerians continue to
the city of Lagos once again has all
to you on
Be the first to know
on CORETV News
from the north, south, east, west, and around Africa. We break the news.
One Nigeria.
Now you can catch all the actions live as the news breaks. We are CORETV News,
Welcome to
a
CORETV.
24-hour news station.